All right, everybody. Welcome to Silicon Zombies, where we bring you the best brains from the Bay to beyond. We're on Pirate Cat Radio. That's KPCR 92.9 FM in Los Gatos, 101.9 FM in Santa Cruz. And we're having fun today. We're coming to you live from Los Gatos. Want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors and our dear friends at Necodex. That's NECODEX.com. They'll help your business with design and coding and development work. They're based in Mexico. They've done phenomenal work for our community. So if you're building a product and you need some assistance, check out NECODEX.com. That's Necodex. And we're gonna dive right into it today. We've got one of my favorite humans in the whole planet here. Tanya Long, welcome to BrainWaves.
I am terrified to be here. Where are we going to go? Where do you want to go?
I don't think anything terrifies Tanya Long.
No.
That's what I think. But I will say, as we kind of set the table here, my first interaction with you was over Zoom. Hat tip to Frankie for the introduction. I get to meet a lot of really cool people. I was blown away at our chemistry, at your level of ability to listen, your insight, both technical and human-driven. Just really wow. And not to flatter too much, because I want to set the bar appropriately. But it feels good to meet a human, and where you're vibrating on those. How woo-woo should we get?
Full woo. Oh, let's have fun. Let's go full woo.
Okay. Full woo.
What I remember in that conversation is we got toward the end and we talked about long-term plans, and we talked about your long-term personal plan, and I could tell it kind of took you off guard. You weren't ready to talk about your life. And you said, I feel so seen.
Yeah. Do you throw a lot of curveballs when you talk to people, or only when you think?
No, I don't like to throw curveballs. People don't respond well to curveballs. Okay. They need to be led into intimate, detailed conversations about their heart.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give an example. I saw someone today. I was at the MedTech conference over at the Santa Clara Convention Center. Saw someone I'd worked with a long time ago.
Yeah.
And she was really pressing on, are you happy? Are you successful? And I'm kind of like, I haven't seen this person in 8 years. And it just felt really personal. I think you've got to lead people into that comfort zone.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe. So two thoughts come to mind. One, maybe she's projecting, or maybe two, perhaps she's trying to show up in a certain way, so there's like a greater affinity. Does that kind of make sense?
It does, and her intentions were definitely for absolutely the best. She wants to hear that I'm doing amazingly well, and but some days there's been a lot going on. And you're like, this is not the day for someone to interrogate me on how well I'm doing, because you just want to say I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I guess there is kind of like something of a balance between showing up authentically, but also sometimes it can almost kind of feel like you have to put on a show, and I don't mean that.
We
in
would
like
know
a
about that,
disingenuous way.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to get personal, aren't we?
Well, I want to.
Yeah. But one of the challenges I think that most of us probably share is people do want to see us doing well, and they do want to see us thriving.
Yeah.
Because they not in a bad way, but they take something from that. They need us to be good, so they can be part of that.
I see.
And so it leaves us
like
unable.
A vehicle, maybe?
We're a vehicle,
okay.
and we're role models. That's a hard thing to come out of my mouth, but we're role models for positive outlooks.
Yeah.
People check in with us to say, should I be okay with the world?
Yeah.
So I don't get to have a bad day. I had a therapist at one point in my life, for a 6 or 7 month period to work through my 50-year-old child issues. And And I told her, I said, people don't want to know that I'm not having a good day.
Sure. Well, I feel like a lot of people rely on you. Myself included.
All of us.
I think.
Yeah.
In fact, just in case the audience
I
was
want to be
wondering,
that
I
person
kind of
for people.
unloaded all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Even like last half hour, you're
No.
like, let's have it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's how each of us shows up in different ways to help other people.
Yeah.
And that's mine.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I also noticed that you showed up for Justin with a brilliant recent interview. What was that experience like? Because, I mean, just to kind of set the table for the audience, Tanya's a rock star in corporate business development, artificial intelligence, growing teams, and you said you've had to fire folks before too, which is its own unique challenge.
I ran really large teams, but I also ran the organizational operations. So we're talking about very large companies.
Yeah.
I have the privilege of having managed the layoffs of thousands of people, because that's where that industry was going.
And you could do it with heart.
With grace.
Yeah.
With grace.
And any collective intelligence.
Treat people like they matter.
Yeah.
Do as much as you can, and at scale it gets more difficult, but they're not numbers.
Yeah.
You know, and understand their situation and partner with them as much as you can to say, I want to help you move forward, whether that's something as small as feedback or an introduction. You know, there are people, I've laid off thousands of people. There are people I've had to move out of organizations at a smaller level. Those are harder.
Did you enjoy any of those?
No.
Okay.
No. But how I made it bearable was to know that I was helping them on to something better for them.
Got it.
Right? And I often, from the outside, kind of had my own sense of what would be better for them. And so the conversations always turned into coaching about not what you messed up here or what you weren't here, but what I see in you to move you in that direction.
Yeah.
And here's some ideas. And being a partner with someone in their transition, I think it just brings that heart to it.
Yeah. That
they're not abandoned and rejected. They are being pointed to something that's going to be ultimately so much better for them.
This might be an overshare, but I ran through a stop sign recently, and my insurance was like, well, this is number 3, and I know the California stop, whatever. And so they politely let me know that.
What do they do here?
Well, I was no longer welcome, basically.
Oh, okay, fine.
And you know, it's just like these small infractions. I think of like, you know, rolling through a stop sign when you're late.
Compared to rolling a car, right?
Sure.
It had no financial impact or consequence to the insurance company.
No.
Yeah.
But you know, when I was talking to the new, because I got reinsured, of course, and when I was talking to the new lady, you know, I kind of was joking. I was like, hey, I do feel a little bit judged having this conversation, you know.
Right.
But I realized like the silly nature of it. I had never met this woman, and you know, we were just having a pretty casual conversation about me getting insured, and here I was like feeling a little bit embarrassed for having run a couple stop signs. So like, what do you think we can take this to mean about how we are social creatures and want to show up well, even for strangers? And then we can get into the juicy AI stuff, if you want.
No, I'm for the next hour.
Yeah.
I am totally at your.
This is gonna fly by.
We're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
Can you ask the question again?
Well, yeah, I guess just like if since humans are such social creatures, how can we? I think real power is not being impacted emotionally when other people
don't show up,
share something with us. Like we're kind of like a steady, cool as a cucumber, calm under pressure. I think that's generally like really seen as valuable if you can maintain that. But it's also maybe not natural to some degree, because you know, we're a tribe, and maybe not much has changed in that capacity. I mean, humans have always been something of a part of a tribe.
This is probably just my bias, but I think everybody's on a scale. And my bias is that everybody should be trying to improve themselves on their scale.
Yeah.
And it's a maturity thing, right? We all, you know, we're basically talking about rejection.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, at its core level, it's rejection. And we all grieve with that, doing it and receiving it.
Yeah.
And we all have to get to a better place in doing both. You've got to be able to reject in terms of saying things don't work or things need to be different. You need to take a different course of action. Those kinds of things in life happen. Whether it's romantic relationships, or whether it's work relationships, or whether it's just a friend who wanted to go on vacation with you, you know, and go surfing, and you're like, well, it's a closed group.
Sure.
You know, there's all kinds of levels of no. And we've all got to get better at saying no.
Yeah.
And receiving it.
Yeah, and it's like navigating how you show up for those other people, because that'll impact us as well.
And the biggest thing I can say on that, you and I've had these conversations, but it's about communication. It's about clarity of communication. What's the Brene Brown quote about clear is kind?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You know, this makes me think of a few months back when Dan Lurie was on the show. Shout out and congratulations,
yes,
Dan.
Oh, wow. Yeah, exactly.
And then, so I, you know, wanted to start the show off on a good footing. So naturally, I went to Tanya. To Tanya, what do you think of this first question? And she said, well, it's not bad. What if you framed it like this? And just to, you know, to give everyone a better understanding, it was me commenting on the fact that he had no experience in local civics, running for mayor of San Francisco for the first time. But how I had framed it was, I don't want to say pejorative, but it wasn't flattering. And then you helped me structure it, and you really just changed a couple words in delivery, but it set off a beautiful conversation with Sharon Byers and Dan in San Francisco. Thank you for showing up. Thank you even more for helping me get the energy going.
It started because we lead groups.
Yeah.
And it's so important how you start, because if you start down in the depths, sometimes it's hard to pull the plane up, right? So it did. It turned out really well, I recall.
Do you find this advice is helpful when you're talking to, because you talk to a lot of founders.
I do.
A lot of startups. And how do you help them craft their message? Because there's a lot of founders listening now.
Right.
What kind of advice could you give them about creating their story to be most compelling to land that customer, or land an investor, or a new employee?
Know your why.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not just about the best blue pen. It's about why your blue pen is unique and what value it provides, what problem it solves. Those things they sound so natural, but a lot of founders aren't yet able to articulate that because they had a great idea. But behind that great idea, there's a reason they went through months, sometimes years, trying to pull that idea into something that's market ready.
Sure.
And to get them to be able to articulate the value in a way that's very human. People buy emotion. People don't buy product. They buy a feeling.
Yeah.
They really do. And so even your most technical products need to have some kind of outcome that can be pulled into a story of how you see the world and how the world can be better with your blue pen. And for everybody to find that unique angle to them is where you start.
Do you think it's the carrot or the stick that is more compelling? I guess maybe it's case by case, or is do you like to lead with positivity overall? If you notice, like, the fear of loss can be more powerful, therefore has a higher likelihood of converting into a customer?
For me, you never ever lead with a stick.
Yeah.
Never ever lead with a stick. Creating fear is the last way I want to show up.
Yeah.
To recruit someone to my vision, my product.
It sounds so obvious when you say it.
It sounds obvious when you say
like,
it.
Duh.
But we've all seen conversations, pitches that are all carrot and not realistic, not reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be tempered. Compelling for me is helping people see the intrinsic value, helping people see themselves in that product.
To maybe change their behavior, because like that's kind of what tech does.
It does.
Is change our behavior. I heard a while ago too that you can't touch something without being affected by it. So like, let's say the whole like fear, uncertainty, doubt, which is this kind of like archaic approach to sales. I think you like scare them into buying your product or service. Your tongue is saying maybe no.
Lately, I'm a fan of FOMO.
Oh, okay. So
it's a different kind of fear.
So I had a double click sound.
Let's get some sound effects.
Yeah, for sure. Where's Peter when we need him?
But yeah, we're that's right.
Yeah.
But depending on the audience and the chemistry, the
Yes.
relationship that you have with some groups, especially, if I'm trying to press a group into doing something, I'll talk about something magical that's happening, that's adjacent to it, so that they're like, well, I could do that.
Yeah.
It's like, you could, even when I know they can.
Sure.
But it's a I don't know, maybe it's a fun way to motivate if a group is hesitant to do something because they're, and I'm experiencing this a lot in AI, with people moving forward with their initial use cases and initiatives. And so creating FOMO is one of them. I'm like, well, Company X just had a press release, and they're like, and they get all like, oh, did you know Frank was doing that? And but it's not fear as much as you've dangled something that you know they want to be,
sure.
A place they desire to be, and they want to catch up. And there's that. It's a good way of stoking competitiveness.
Ooh, stoking that should definitely be the name for a future zombie show.
And you've got plenty of people in your network that could talk to that.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking.
Well, I lots and lots of different opinions on how to do it, because it's also got to match your style.
True.
You've got to be authentic.
Yeah. I can tell you always have fun when you're talking with people too.
I love people.
Yeah, you're very good at it. So, like for example, you have parallels with Dr. Alex Kahana, who was on maybe 6 or 7 months ago. He flew in from New York. That was super fun. And I've noticed that he has some similar approaches to storytelling as you.
Okay.
He got up on stage and said, "Imagine if you wish." And it
a little bit of drama, a little bit of theater.
Exactly. It almost didn't even matter what he said next. I mean, that specific talk was like weaving technology and health into a narrative, and what does that look like? But it's like a flair for the dramatic. Do you think part of your storytelling strategy, or maybe not strategy, but like your philosophy has something to do with stories that you heard as a kid? Tell us what it was like growing up in the South, and how did it impact you?
Those are two different angles, in the coaching world, they would call that stacking questions.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to teach you about that offline. Growing up in the South and being a storyteller, I was not surrounded. I grew up on a tobacco farm. Both sets of grandparents were less than 5 miles away, so very close-knit families. But we worked. We physically worked. got dirty working. And I would say sincerely that my family was not a flamboyant family.
Okay.
They weren't big on words. They didn't do grand gestures. They were just simple.
Yeah.
And I don't want any of them to happen to hear this and feel bad, but they're just, we worked, we survived.
Yeah.
We went to church on Sundays, and then we did it all over again the next week, right? So, but the storytelling thing, I think, evolved through my corporate career because I recognized who in the audience was listening and who wasn't. When I would prepare these big decks, for operational reviews, for customer QBRs, but I wanted to see my product go. I wanted to see it launch, be seen and received. And so I'd always watch the audience, and I got the opportunity to learn early on. You can present compelling data, and people are checked out, they're bored. And this is even before cell phones, before people were attached to their devices so much. But you just didn't have them with you. But when you turn data into a story, when you help people see the why behind why these numbers matter, when you took just the minute to set it up to do that, you got so much further in what you were trying to accomplish with those rather dry topics.
But you would still start with emotion. Do you always start with emotion when you're telling stories?
I would say by design. It's not intentional, but I think it's what happens most of the time. Because it's just who I am. I've got to engage people. So just delivering a message is no fun. Anybody can do that.
I think people want to be engaged. So we've been doing it since the dawn of time. Like imagine us huddling around a fire. We can hear the snaps and the crackles, and maybe there's wolves in the distance. So we can better understand ourselves, better understand other people, and it feels really good to be in service to others. And they found that time and time again with human happiness studies. But we also want to improve our own personal situation, which I think is core at the work that you do with so many founders.
I think people remember stories. They don't remember statements.
Yeah.
Right?
Unless the statement is really gangster.
But that's a story. But if a statement reverberates and stays with you 3 days later when you're running a stop sign, then I know.
Too soon.
I know. Bless your heart.
So what statements have left a big impact on you?
It's not this. I love quotes, right? Like that Brene Brown quote. That's
clean is clear.
And
clear is kind.
Clear is kind.
Clear is kind.
When you can insert a good quote from someone who's an industry icon. I love quotes, but visually, stories that can be presented visually, because we're in such a distributed world. You and I have a real. We have a real benefit that we get to be with a lot of people.
Yeah. But high quality.
And a lot of very high quality people. Yeah. But we get to engage just like this.
Yeah.
More than most, I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the world is still on Zoom. Not because of the pandemic, but just because of the nature of work has become so much more distributed. And so visuals, I think a well-timed photograph or verbally creating a picture for people helps them move forward. And you ask about founders, and as I think about the founders that I have, they call me the pitch witch. But I love it. I do. I love it because there's a lot of wisdom out there that says when you're fundraising that stop working on your deck. But to me, it's about more than the deck. It's about the person really getting clear on why they exist and why they put this. Sometimes you have to do it in order to recognize all the things that compelled you to build that blue pen, right? And the deck is a way to get them grounded in their why, so that they can talk about it as naturally at a cocktail party as they do when they're pitching a VC.
And you're so good at that. I've gotten a chance to talk to a lot of different people, and my favorite people, I don't have to worry about, am I going to ask them something that they're uncomfortable with, because they're so rooted in their own why. I guess it kind of comes down to, it's kind of like a nucleus of sorts, that the question or the narrative or the dynamic or the philosophy, their circumstances, the people, it all changes, but it's all gravy, and it's fun, and it's enlightening. So kudos to you, Tanya.
But that's very sweet. I think as leaders, though, because I think the people who tend to listen to you tend to be leaders, whether they're named or not. It's important for us to know who our audience is.
Yeah.
Every audience is a little different. Audiences of 1, audiences of 50, but every single engagement, who your communications are reaching.
Yeah.
It's knowing who you're talking to.
For sure.
It's seeing those people, whether it's Nick on a Zoom call, those many months ago, or feeling a crowd. I remember getting a little weepy. I was talking. The Chief organization is pretty well known in the Bay Area, but it's a U.S. based executive women's organization. But I led an AI roundtable for them, and I got really. And one of the questions from the audience was, what do you lose sleep over with AI?
Yeah.
And I had to talk about my family.
Wow.
And so I had a room full of women at the chief office in San Francisco. There were probably 100 people, but I got all choked up because I said, we're in this bubble, and I quoted a statistic I'd heard at the Microsoft campus the week before about how few it was something around 50% of Americans read below a 6th grade level.
No.
Yeah, it was. I've got the stat.
Wow.
It's terrible. And I said, if 50% of Americans read below a 6th grade level, my family on that tobacco farm in Tennessee can barely trust to put their credit card into the computer to buy something on Amazon.
Yeah.
And they're going to be left behind.
Oh, I see.
Right?
Yeah.
But that was me understanding that audience. All executive women, and this is 8 months ago, so still a lot of fear, a lot of the unknown around AI.
Yeah. And you showed up with vulnerability, transparency, and that, not to make this transactional, but that's like incredible content. All because you were just honest.
And I also wanted them to understand that they sit in such a privileged place. And they all have they all have, and I wanted to make them aware of, whether it's their, cousin who hasn't, gotten on the tech bandwagon, or that they all have people in their lives they need to be concerned about.
Yeah, and maybe there's a certain sense of responsibility because we are, in a unique,
there is responsibility. Absolutely. When I talked about us being role models, it's not because we're so much fun and people like showing up.
We are pretty fun.
Well, we can have fun. Yes, we can. Thank you for that. But
since we're at the 30-minute mark, I wanted to do a quick station ID. You're listening to 92.9 FM in Los Gatos, 101.9 FM in Santa Cruz, KCAT Radio, and this is Silicon Zombies, BrainWaves. We've got Tanya Lung on the mic here. And also a quick shout out to our friends at Nicodex. So if you're building a product and you need some assistance with design or development, these guys, incredible rates, good people, superb track record. That's NECODEX.com. And as we think about building and creating, Tanya, maybe this is a good opportunity to bring up your new book. In fact, it's fresh. In fact, right?
Oh no, it's not.
Oh, I thought this was part of what the Justin project was.
Oh, but the book's not new. The book's 18, 19 months post publication.
Got it.
So released it last summer when things were still pretty wild.
Oh, and things have gotten so tame since then.
Right. Oh, well, yeah. Good point. Good point.
Has this been a pretty neat vehicle for you?
It has. Remarkably, it has. The book's a hack.
Yeah.
You know, the book is not up to my standards. I did it in 90 days with ChatGPT, but I did it. But it's perseverance. That's what we have, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get it done. I'd never wanted to write a book. Never. That was not on my to-do list.
Sure.
But the call came, and so the world was moving fast. It was right after ChatGPT 4.0 released, March 16th of 2023.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to write the book, and I knew that things were going to move quick, so I had to be fast. So 90 days later, I published it at the end of July.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your cadence like? I mean, because you must have had to jump like in the deep end and do nothing else.
Not many people know this. If Cheryl's out there, she thank you. I had 4 or 5 weeks where I just could not write at all. I think it was probably fear of doing something inferior.
Wow.
But I had 4 or 5 weeks where I just could not proceed. I found, literally not one word.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And can you walk us through what that was like, staring at a blank page? And this is like on the heels of like a wildly impressive career that's still rocking and rolling and growing.
I didn't feel like it was a blank page. I honestly, because I wrote it with ChatGPT, and I think because of ChatGPT at the time, that was the prime, it still is the prime LLM for consumers. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have written the book without ChatGPT if I hadn't had it, because it pushed me. I would brainstorm. We've gotten to a world where getting good conversation with high quality people is valuable, but I'm not in a big corporate environment like I used to be, where I could schedule 30 minutes with somebody in a conference room where we can chew on something.
Sure.
So ChatGPT was my collaboration partner, and it really kept me moving, because we arbitrated hard. We would go back and forth, and it never felt like a blank page.
That's so much more profound than a lot of the kind of trifling use cases around like cleaning up an email or writing a haiku.
Do you know the story about how this came?
I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was in my jewelry box. I knew I was mulling on. I should write a book about this. But what? Right? about the AI explosion that everyone was trying to ignore.
Yeah.
And I was in my jewelry box, and I found a little pin that was the red shoes that Dorothy wore that my mother had given to me. Now my mom is gone. She's moved on to the next realm. Mm-hmm. But it was a little red Dorothy slippers, pin that I think I got in grad school. There's no theme of that in our lives together. There's other than we watched it when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, Dorothy was pretty fascinating, but she pulled all these different skill sets together with this motley team, a lion, a tin man, a scarecrow that wanted a brain, right?
Yeah.
So I went into ChatGPT. I said, if I were to write a book around the Wizard of Oz theme, what might, and I built out a table of contents. Wow. And then I just wrote for hours and hours back and forth with ChatGPT.
You kind of have a Dorothy vibe to you. I can't quite put my finger on it why.
I do have a lot of red shoes.
Yeah, and clearly a ragtag group of weirdos like me. Yeah, that's good.
You will be in my next book.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I called it Tin Man. What did he need? He needed a heart.
He needed a heart. You've got plenty of heart.
Let's do something else, maybe. Maybe.
I want to make you the lion.
Oh, wow. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I actually have a huge tattoo of a lion on my chest.
You do not.
No, I just
thank you. I was like, no.
When you said that folks were trying to ignore AI, that's a really kind of a unique thing. I wonder why. My feeling is that it was just so monumental. Like, what did they say? Like, the test, when you can't tell if it's an AI or a real person, there's a word for that. In fact, I think it was the gentleman that broke the wartime codes, the German wartime codes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's probably a lot of people in their car right now.
Going, and they would win the $25 million on
That's right.
The Price is Right or Family Feud or whatever
come on down.
Games are now.
Or call in, except I don't know how to answer the phone.
Oh, that would be scary.
Yeah.
Well, be careful because our phones might start ringing.
Exactly.
Nick, the word is.
Yeah.
We have those kinds of people in our lives. That's it.
At any rate, when we did reach this point where we couldn't tell if it was man or machine, it almost...
Turing test.
The Turing test. Thank you.
Oh, that's what you were trying to describe?
Yeah. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Thanks. John just helped us out here. We had to phone a friend, and it worked out. The reason that people are afraid of this and didn't acknowledge it is just because it's been such a monumental point in history, and we finally we crossed it. And so you're saying maybe it's fear.
Specifically for what led to the book was so many executives in my life that were like, I'd be at Airstream rallies, and I'd be like, have you been playing with this yet? And they're like, oh, Tanya, you're ruining my beer, just move away.
Yeah.
And these people that have 8,000 and 9,000 person companies, and it's the chief risk officer, and I'm like, you're going to get your hat handed to you if you don't understand this.
You're like, I think this is actually a big thing.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
And what I recognized was, for years and years, the people at those levels, information has been brought to them. They did not have to get involved. People like me, as I was ramping through my career, showed up with beautiful decks with stories about what's happening, why, what we're doing to mitigate, and so they receive. They don't have to get involved. AI is different. I think everybody has to get involved. And so the more people I talked to that were like, they were overwhelmed, but there's also this ego thing that keeps a lot of people from going where they need to with AI because they don't want to fail and they assume it's super technical.
But it's kind of a neat thing that it seems to be a great equalizer.
Oh, completely.
We've all got,
but we didn't know that then. Yeah.
So they reached 100 million monthly active users in Jan of 2023, just 2 months after its 2022 launch. Wait, just 2 months after? Yeah.
2022, it was Thanksgiving time frame when they launched. So right. 2023, that's correct.
100 million active. Yeah, that's a lot. And so this is something that is clearly a monumental shift. How are you using it? By the way, you're the one that introduced me to Opus, which is a really cool... Well, I'll let you explain. How are you using AI tools? And what tools? And what should we be using?
I want to finish a story about the book that is a way of answering this question.
Sure.
It was time to write my last chapter. I decided to write my last chapter, and I had, I think we'd written 4 chapters together out of 10. And I said, hey, and I trained ChatGPT by dumping a bunch of my thought leadership content in, so it knew my voice.
That's awesome.
Okay? Now, I don't have children. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm sitting there, dark room around me, just the monitor providing light. I said, okay, ChatGPT, go for it. You know what the structure of the book is. We've written 4 or 5 chapters already. I want to write the final chapter. There's no place like home.
Ooh, yeah. That's a nice nod.
And I want you to do it. So,
wow. Did it say thank you?
No,
it's I'm so honored.
Now it says, I hope you like it.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. But it has evolved. But I'm sitting there, asked it to write my last chapter, and any of you who've used these large language model chatbots, that's what they are, it started spilling out the words for the last chapter, and I saw my speech nuances. I put little dots way too often when I write, little ellipses. I saw my voice.
Wow.
And I mentioned I didn't have kids. I cried because it was because I had birthed a reflection of me.
That is so cool.
In technology, which means so much to me. And it was a moment because it was. I mean, all lump in the throat, tear streamed because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
What it said was beautiful, and what it said was my voice.
Yeah.
It was my voice. So that's a moment I had early on because we're talking May, June of 2023.
So you're an early adopter.
I'm always on the front end of the technology curves because I love what it can do for us, and I love sharing with people how their lives can be better, and I want to take the fear out of it, which is very consistent with your mission.
For sure.
To demystify a lot of things in the world.
Thank you for saying that. In my LinkedIn about me, it says I want to free people of their self-imposed fears, but that's not something I really share. Aside from my about me section.
Yeah.
So the fact you picked up on that, that's just a really cool thing. Yeah.
You and I are communicators and storytellers and story gatherers.
Yeah.
We see people to bring their story from them because we want to see other people thrive.
For sure.
It's inherent to what it's our reward for the work that we do.
Yeah.
I think we're very consistent that way.
Yeah. It's like it's a gift, but it's also a gift to ourselves, because we get to be
100%.
part of that journey,
100%. So I use tools to answer that question you asked.
Yeah.
I still use ChatGPT a lot as a writing partner.
Yeah.
I produce a lot of content right now that's written, and it's a really good writing partner to help me get rid of some of my verboseness and
I happen to like your verboseness,
but
the verbosity.
But I use that. I use you mentioned Opus clips. That I could throw in an hour of video of us doing this, and it would produce for me 30 Justin Wink's podcast that I just did that you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Uh-huh.
It produced 30 45-second clips.
Wow.
With the closed captioning, and people would rather look at a 30-second commitment to understand when if they want to go and look at the 1 hour commitment.
It's like kind of like bait, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe all the social media can be seen as like a fishing bait.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's passive, where do you think things are going with content creators? I have an idea, but it seems like, well, I'm going to withhold my. What are your thoughts?
Oh, this can go in so many directions.
Or brands. What do brands mean?
Well, I was at a Stanford Web3 meetup a couple of weeks ago, and they laid out the line that we are on the verge of experiencing our first solopreneur unicorn.
Wow.
That's based on brand, right? But it's never one person. What I think is happening, we're big on community.
Yeah.
And I think we will have a solopreneur. A unicorn, for those of you who might not know, is a $1 billion company. It's a company with $1 billion valuation. It's happened in some faster than normal timeline. And we will have brands that will be solopreneurs, but they will have multiple teams all over the world that are part of the delivery for their company to help them do things. Whether it's guys doing some of the front-end design work, somebody else doing the management of different activities and services that occur. I think it makes community that much more important, because our global community is not this peninsula. Our global community is, the guy in Finland that I met at an event on the peninsula that flew back home because his company does outsourcing of really high quality engineers.
Wow.
And we're always in need of those. There's 1,000 of those stories that you and I have, but our Rolodex of community is going to be increasingly important as we build brands and as we build businesses that appear much smaller, because what everyone has been, I've been saying this, I feel like 8 or 10 months, we're no longer going to have really, really big companies like the FANG companies, the Googles and the Salesforces and the Net, these big organizations is not the way companies from today will evolve.
Yeah.
There'll be really big valuations of companies, but they might only have 100 people. So,
So knowing this, it's interesting to kind of like predict what's around the corner and how we could set ourselves up for that. Robert Scoble had mentioned.
Loved him.
Yeah, he's a unique fella. That there could be, theoretically, you build these agentic frameworks where you could build 10 companies at once, and then the one that does start to take off, I guess you spend more time in it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you interested in trying something out like this?
Every day that answer is different. Because I'm not called to build a company. I feel like my value is much better to the world if I'm helping 50 other people who are starting companies who will be more successful because of our engagement. So I feel like doing that work of helping advise boards and founders has more impact than me building a better blue pen.
But what if, just to play devil's advocate,
yep,
you can show how you've gone through the process of using this new agentic framework, which seems to be it's coming.
Yeah.
And then,
Jeremiah talks about it all the time. Jeremiah Ouyang.
Oh, from Blitz.
From Blitzscaling. He's the goat.
Really?
Except he'd be the llama. But I'm pumped.
Yeah, that's right.
Little shout out there. But I mean, he is on stages 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
Giving a different pitch every time because it's evolving, and Blitzscaling is investing in companies who are already building tools for agent populations, agentic AI populations. How your AI is going to pay for things.
Yeah.
You send your AI off to go figure out some complex issue. Your agentic AI tools, but they're working on payment systems where there's the proper security and handshakes and approvals for the AI to spend your money.
Wow.
And because that's where we're going to be. I think in 2 years our lives will be dramatically different in how we organize, plan, and deliver things. You just organized a huge conference. You just delivered the longevity, the ageless evolution.
Yeah.
I was holding that in. You just produced ageless evolution, and I have some visibility into how much work that was.
Yeah. And by that means you got the phone calls. Tanya, what are we doing? Everything's going terribly.
Tanya, I've got a pizza. Come over.
Yeah.
It was.
You can say, Nick.
It's
Sandra. It's gonna be okay.
It's all good.
Yeah.
But it is a ton of work, and I think a lot of that work will be outsourced. Honest to God, I think that work will be largely outsourced when you do 1 and 2 years, because everything from collecting quotes to the details of ordering, selection of all the little nuanced things that you and Sandra went through to do that will now be served up for you to agree to, and it'll be a big shift for us.
I hope you're right. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek just because it was a lot of work, but it also feels like maybe there's like a better understanding of what goes into these things. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who's listening to this and considering starting or launching a conference, it may feel really daunting, but I would say just take that leap. Our friend Bill Berry of Ignite GTM told me because he did AI Infra maybe 4 months ago, something like that.
There was one like in April-ish.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was the first one, and he just couldn't live with himself, so he had to improve it.
Yeah.
And then in San Francisco, it was October. It was end of September, right before Ageless Evolution. Was his second one.
And so he had I was confiding him in as well, saying like, you know, just this is really daunting. You know, it's going to be like 6 figures. What if nobody shows? All like these projections of craziness, you know. And he said, well, you're going to have to just jump off, take the leap off the cliff, and just trust that everything is going to be all right. And guess what? It's going to be all right. And so he ended up helping. Just listening. Okay. And him, you know, it's kind of interesting too. Is like when we're getting a bunch of people together, it's not us doing that. It's us pulling in Bill, who will bring 10, 15 really just wonderful humans. You doing the same. Marianne Becker doing the same. So it's like it becomes almost like there's a nucleus that is able to drive more energy. It's like the sum of our parts are greater when we work together, and then when there's alignment on values, and plus it's fun to do these things, to see something come out of nothing. It's almost like, you know, magic. Right?
It's not magic, though. It's work.
But it feels like maybe the end product.
Yeah. And what I'm reflecting on, the thing that's magical about our group that I think is worth sharing, we all know each other's role. You know, groups are hard to pull together and everybody be on their own vision, if you will. So everyone...
Speaking of group dynamics, it's like forming, storming, norming.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Does that happen with larger groups as well, or is that only on a singular person?
Larger groups
basis?
Absolutely do that. The larger the scale, the more the financial risk. There are often decisions made, and the group still storms, forms, and norms on that. But the outcome has already been chosen. Does that make sense?
Can you give us an example?
Delivering a product release in a big tech company.
Yeah.
The company's already taken a position. They're going to deliver something new into the market.
Stake in the sand.
So you don't get to sit around and be like, should we do this or should we not do this? No. This is the CEO's already talked about it at a huge, you know, world event.
Yeah.
So we have to deliver it. It's the how that we get to do. So there's still that storm forming and norming down at the strategy and planning level.
Yeah.
What I think is remarkable about our group, having worked with our people that we've been talking about, is there's this deep respect about each other. And I've never seen us be competitive. I've never seen us... We don't have anybody in the group who goes, but I want the blue pens. I want the blue pens. And she ordered black.
Sure.
Nobody's petty. Oh, sorry, I made noise down there.
No,
but as I reflect on it, there's always been such good chemistry in the group, and people knew who the decision maker was for that particular thing.
Sure.
And people weren't jockeying for where they were in the group. And that's the thing about group dynamics that I think is tricky and difficult.
Yeah.
Is everybody's got to have a way to win inside of a group, but everybody's not in charge.
It feels like a longer term relationship driven approach. And maybe that's just pretty special to the Bay Area. Like, do you think that same kind of philosophy exists out? Well, I'm sure it does, but just maybe in a different capacity.
The philosophy exists on globally scaled teams.
Yeah.
I think the chemistry evolves faster here because of our proximity, because of our similar trajectories that we've, you know, you and I have entirely different previous history skill sets, right? But you and I have the same ethos about how to do things because of your turn as an entrepreneur and a serial founder and a Y Combinator guy. You and I still have alignment in how we look at getting things done and how we're willing to share.
Yeah. And that, what you just said, I think is the reason why I felt so seen and understood when we first hung out, which was a 30-minute meeting that went for like 2.5 hours. It's something crazy like that. So, Tanya, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
I always want to make sure that these are hyper valuable to you. So let's maybe hit that in just a second. But before we touch on that, I'd love to. What were some of the highlights? Justin is such a sweet human being and a PhD. Like, whoa, pretty cool. Mm-hmm. What were some of your highlights of doing that talk with him? He's very funny, by the way. Can we give a plug for that?
He is. This is usually a bad word. He is raw.
Yeah.
But he just. One of the things I appreciate about him is that he is his true, authentic self, and he does not mask it for anyone. I think it creates trust because you always know that you're getting what he thinks. Yeah. Right? Even if you don't like it, even if it makes you cringe, not cringe is the wrong word. If it makes you uncomfortable because he didn't agree with you. Yeah. But you always know when he has a different point of view. And
like a consistency.
And he very much is consistent about the ethos of who he is. But he's remarkable. The talk was remarkable. I don't know if he brought me up to do that talk because I didn't want to do it that day. We were scheduled. But I wasn't prepared enough. I didn't know what his modality was. Yeah. And so I was super slammed. I didn't want to do it. If you look at the video, I got on no makeup. I got on Zoom lipstick. Zoom does that now.
I thought you looked fantastic in the.
But he pushed me gently. Yeah. To do it. And my takeaway from the day, you can't even see on the video, because my takeaway from the day is that when you talk with people you trust about things you love and enjoy, you don't have to be prepped. Yeah. You can just run with it. So we had a lot of good, deep discussions on AI and community and where the world is headed from he and I differ on security, but more on things don't have to be perfect to be released.
Ah, I see.
Because he's an Intel guy, so he wants everything like buttoned up, squared away. And I'm like, if we do that, Tesla, autonomous driving,
never gets done.
It never gets done. If we are worried about the 3 mailboxes it took out on the 10,000 first test drives, then we're ignoring the fact that thousands of people fall asleep at the wheel every year, and cause property destruction and human destruction.
30,000 deaths per year. So with automobiles. Yeah. So if we could fix that with self-driving, innovation. Yeah.
But Justin is structured when it comes to product development. Yeah. Not necessarily other things. So, but I love that there's that give and take. That that we don't agree and we can talk. Excuse me, microphone. That we can talk about it. Yeah. And come somewhere. So it was one of the more fun podcasts that I've done.
Cool. Wonderful human. I really like the idea of conflicting viewpoints, because friction is where it gets spicy. We did a show at the SAP Labs last week in San Francisco.
I couldn't be there with the German Association.
Yeah. I think you were getting honored as Partner of the Month, which is pretty cool.
I might have been.
Yeah. Cue applause button. And so, with that, where can folks purchase your book? Maybe can they find you on LinkedIn? Anybody who hasn't met Tanya, I can't strongly recommend fixing that. But anyways, I'll let you.
The book is on Amazon, AI and the New Oz, Leadership's Journey to the Future of Work. So it is on Amazon. I used to schlep copies with me to the events, but I don't do that anymore. I'd rather pay to send you a book than schlep copies. You can find me online, of course. Tanya J. Long, middle initial J, is I'm on LinkedIn. And then the website for my consultancy business is quantumcrow.ai.
Quantumcrow.ai.
And it talks a lot about like my philosophy and mindset on transformation, which is it's what we do. Whether it's a company moving into AI or working with people to help them get to their next highest elevation.
That's beautiful, and I hope they include some photos too, because you've got a remarkable group of pictures. You know, the queen of the selfies, and it's I know that there's pros and cons there, but it's a beautiful gift that you get to bring. So, Tanya, thank you so much for coming on BrainWaves. It has been an absolute delight having you on Silicon Zombies, which is on KCAT Radio, and that's 92.9 FM in Los Gatos, 101.9 FM in Santa Cruz, and this is the best brains, Silicon Zombies, BrainWaves. Tune in next Wednesday for more fun and demystifying emerging tech. Thanks, everybody. Take care.